At my father's funeral, a revered four-star general, my stepmother stepped into my path. "Your uniform is a disgrace," she hissed. My own brother muttered, "Go away, you bastard." They thought they were burying his legacy. Little did they know, they were about to be buried by it. I am Morgan Ellis. I'm 37 years old, and today I was laying my father to rest. The air inside the aged chapel at Fort Lincoln was heavy, thick with more than just the scent of lilies and polished oak. It carried the weight of fallen heroes. A solemn, sacred silence that felt both familiar and suffocating. My service uniform clung like a second skin. The navy blue jacket, tailored to perfection, the medals gleaming on my chest, a quiet but heavy ledger of my life. Each ribbon and star spoke a language few could understand: duty, honor, country. It was the only language my father, General Robert Ellis, and I truly spoke fluently. But as I reached the chapel's stone threshold, it wasn't a somber usher who met me, it was my stepmother, Vivian Shaw. She stood like a sentinel, blocking the way to a ceremony she had orchestrated, not mourning. Clad in a sleek black Armani dress, one that probably cost more than a rookie's annual pay, she inspected me coldly. Her smile was a crimson slash, sharp and false, never reaching her calculating eyes. "Morgan, darling," she cooed with a sweetness laced in venom. "I know you want to pay your respects, but this uniform," she flicked her gaze to my chest, the distaste plain. "It's so aggressive. It doesn't belong here. It makes people uneasy." Her words struck deliberately. For a moment, I was back in the dust of Kandahar, grit and danger, the sharp edge of survival, a far cry from this perfumed chapel. My uniform was not aggressive. It was a symbol of endurance. Something she could never understand. She had taken the emblem of my life's work, of my bond with my father, and twisted it into a vulgar display. I masked my feelings behind military discipline, a skill earned in harsher places than a Washington funeral. My jaw clenched, but I said nothing. Inside, her poison echoed. Then my stepbrother, Clayton, slid past with the easy arrogance of entitlement. At 30, the pampered heir of the Shaw fortune, he was dressed in a bespoke Gucci suit, a loud announcement of wealth, not merit. He leaned close, invading my space, breath heavy with expensive whiskey and disdain. "Dad's gone," he whispered, venom sharp as a dagger. "You don't belong here anymore. Take whatever dignity you have left and leave." "Bastard! Bastard!" Not shouted, delivered cold and surgical, severing the last frayed bond one had with them. I was the daughter of the first wife, a living reminder of a life before Vivian. The word hit like a blow, but my training kept me upright. My eyes fixed on the flag-draped casket before me. I was a major general. I would not flinch. I took a seat in the back pew, isolated. Around me, the murmurs of Washington's elite floated: senators, lobbyists. Quiet talk of a private luncheon at the Grand Emery Hotel, overlooking the Capitol, an event I wasn't invited to. To them, I was a relic, tolerated but not family. The service blurred, a parade of platitudes from men who knew my father's rank but not his soul. When it ended, a sharp voice cracked through the room. "Major General on the floor, attention!" Colonel David Sinclair, my father's oldest friend, barked orders with the authority of a lifetime soldier. It was no request. The crowd snapped to attention, a unified crack of heels on stone. Even a few retired politicians straightened reflexively. They stood a rigid wall of honor. Vivian's perfectly composed face flickered in confusion. Clayton merely looked annoyed. They were witnessing a ritual they'd never understand. Colonel Sinclair walked straight to me, grief and resolve etched on his face. He bypassed Vivian and Clayton without a glance. In his hand was a thick cream envelope, pressed into my gloved hand. It was heavy. The linen paper was fine, the wax seal sharp against my skin beneath my gloves. Stamped with my father's signet ring, a dark crimson mark. General Ellis said, Colonel Sinclair whispered just for me, if I ever go silent, David, give this to Morgan. She's the only one who can make silence roar. I looked at the envelope, fingers tightening around it. Grief was a fog, but this was a compass. Rage was a fire, but this was a target. Humiliation was a wound, but this was a direct order. My mission had just begun. The real data, the jewels, was hidden deep inside, fragmented and disguised with a level of paranoia I had to respect. Your father was a paranoid genius, Eli muttered, fingers flying across the keyboard. He pointed at a seemingly random string of data that looked like nothing but digital static. This isn't noise. It's a ghost. He used steganography, hiding encrypted audio files inside the benign white noise of other recordings. He'd turned the daily public briefings into digital dead drops. A true Cold War spy in the digital age. I stood behind him, fists clenched at my sides, a general without command, watching a one-man war unfold. I felt a surge of professional helplessness, a feeling I despised. My entire career was built on action, command, control. Here, my rank meant nothing. I could only watch, wait, and make coffee. I brewed a fresh pot, black and strong enough to strip paint from a battleship, and set a steaming mug by his elbow. A small gesture of solidarity, a soldier's gesture. Eli delved deeper into the digital labyrinth, running a proprietary program he called Janus. He said it was an intelligence tool, almost mythical, designed to reconstruct damaged or hidden audio files by analyzing residual harmonics. The echo left behind in the silence. It listens to the silence between the sounds, he explained, eyes glued to the screen. Hours slipped past, marked only by the shifting light through the cabin window and the slowly emptying coffee pot. Suddenly, Eli froze, holding up a hand. Contact. He isolated a tiny audio fragment, scrubbing it clean of static. He looked at me, a silent question. I nodded. He hit play. The voice filling the cabin was cold, sharp, utterly devoid of emotion. A voice used to giving orders, and having them obeyed without question. A voice of absolute power. He's a problem. Make sure he never gets the chance to testify before the committee. The air left my lungs in a silent gasp. Not a suggestion. An execution order. Suspicion, grief, rage, all solidified into terrible, undeniable certainty. Eli's fingers danced again, running voice recognition against a national security database he shouldn't have accessed. Seconds later, a formal portrait appeared on the screen. Handsome, decorated, wearing a predator's smile. The name below confirmed my worst fear. General Alistair Blackwood. A green bar pulsed beneath the image. Voice match probability, 99.7%. No doubt. A block of ice formed in my chest, heavy, suffocating. My father hadn't died of a heart attack. He'd been eliminated. A 4-star general, a man who gave 40 years to his country, erased like a pawn. The cold calculation of it was more horrifying than any battlefield violence I'd witnessed. Betrayal from within. Keep digging, I growled, voice low and foreign to myself. Eli nodded, grim-faced, and returned to work, focus now laced with vengeful energy. More time passed. Then another audio file emerged. Different, better quality, clearer, as if recorded on another device. Eli's eyes met mine before he hit play. My father's voice filled the room. Deep, warm, painfully familiar. a hand squeezing my heart. But beneath the warmth was urgency, a finality that made the hairs on my arm rise. Morgan, if you're hearing this, it means I didn't make it. Don't cry for me. I've lived a full life, but it also means you found the path. You were always the best soldier I ever knew. My breath caught. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to stem the sudden burn of tears. But his voice continued, a testament from the grave. Don't trust the system. It's compromised. Trust your instincts. And don't stop, daughter. Not for anything. Whatever the cost. A pause, a shaky breath breaking the general's rock-solid composure. The sound of a father, not an officer. Complete the mission. His voice cracked on the last words. A father's infinite love breaking through a commander's final desperate order. Then only the soft hum of servers remained. The silence was heavier, more profound than any I'd known. The ice in my chest shattered. In its place, a white-hot rage ignited, burning away grief. This was no longer a message. Not a whisper of conspiracy. It was a charge from my commanding officer. A dying wish from my father. He knew. He knew they were coming. And he laid this trail, believing I'd follow it to the end. That I'd finish the fight he could not. My grief was a storm. My purpose an anchor. My path no longer hidden. Lit by my father's final sacrifice. His final order echoing in my mind, complete the mission. The fight was now twofold. 1. Against the shadowy conspiracy that killed him. 2. Against the family trying to erase him. To fight the first war, I needed resources. Resources locked inside the house I grew up in. I drove my Jeep back to the familiar tree-lined streets of Milan, Virginia. The Shaw estate stood behind high wrought iron gates, a gleaming white fortress of new money and old grudges. A place of polished surfaces and hidden cruelties. I pressed the intercom button. A small camera lens stared cold and unblinking. A moment later, Vivian's voice crackled through, filtered, metallic. Who is it? It's me, Morgan. A long pause, thick with disdain. This is private property. Please leave. I kept my voice calm, precise. The tone you use with a hostile negotiator. Under Virginia law, as a direct descendant, I have the right to be informed about matters concerning the will. A dry, rasping laugh echoed from the speaker. The will? Oh, you naive child. Your father left nothing for those who betray their family. Betray my years of service, the life he built on those principles. She twisted it into treason. Before I could respond, the main gate stayed shut. But the pedestrian gate clicked open. Clayton appeared, not alone. Beside him, a man in a sharp, expensive suit, leather briefcase in hand. The lawyer. A planned ambush. Clayton sauntered forward, smug and triumphant. His Maserati Ghibli gleamed in the driveway, polished grille like predator's teeth. Big sister, he began, dripping with condescension. Let me be clear, so even your simple military mind can understand. He stopped just inside the gate a physical barrier of exclusion. The lawyer lingered silently, a vulture in pinstripes. Dad signed a new will 6 months ago, Clayton announced loudly. Everything, this house, stocks, trust funds, goes to Mother and me. Your name, he paused, savoring the moment, isn't mentioned once. You're a deleted footnote, Morgan. An error that's been corrected. He waved a thick stack of papers, a trophy. My father's signature at the bottom, tired, forced. Cold fury boiled inside, but I locked it down, show no weakness. I don't care about money, Clayton, I said, voice dangerously quiet. I want my father's personal effects. His medals. His journals from his office. Clayton laughed, loud, ugly. Personal effects? That junk from his office? We cleared it out. Sold it to some collector, made room for my new entertainment suite. The casual cruelty, the desecration of his memory, was staggering. They'd sold his soul for a bigger TV. I stared at him, at the empty space where a brother should have been. Contempt. He saw it and smirked tighter. Stepping closer, voice venomous and low. You were never really part of this, Morgan. You were a mistake my father had to pay for. A ghost. His gaze lingered on my uniform, disgust. Now get out before I call security. Don't dirty my driveway. Don't dirty my driveway. The final indignity. The final severing. For years I endured their slights, exclusions, psychological warfare, all for my father. But he was gone. Ceasefire over. Rules of engagement changed. They thought all power was locked behind gates of wealth and paper. They thought I was a ghost. They were about to learn ghosts can haunt. And ghosts can fight. I returned to Eli's cabin, fire burning cold in my gut. Humiliation at my childhood home had cauterized grief, leaving something hard, sharp, and brutally clear. I paced the floorboards, a restless metronome counting down to war. A caged tiger, bars forged from family greed and enemy arrogance. Every detail replayed. The lawyer's smug silence. Clayton's triumphant smirk. The final insult. Don't dirty my driveway. They took my home. Selling my father's legacy piece by piece like junk at a garage sale. They will pay, I said low and final. Eli hunched over terminals, eyes on the screen showing Blackwood's kill order. We have the kill order, he said practically. The smoking gun. We can leak it to the press, New York Times, Washington Post. Front page news. I stopped pacing, shook my head. Strategy clear through the chaos of anger. No. Too predictable. Their game, their turf. They'll deny, bury it under no comments, drag out investigations that go nowhere. Blackwood will weather the storm. Story dies in a week. We waste our best weapon. I met Eli's gaze, clear, strategic, focused. I want to attack where they least expect it. Not the press. Their own world. Use their arrogance against them. I pointed to the audio file. Can you isolate a 10-second clip? Just his voice saying, make sure he never gets the chance to testify. No context. No background noise. Nothing else. A slow, wolfish grin spread across Eli's face. The haunted look replaced by the gleam of a predator with fresh prey. General, I can make it sound like he's whispering it in your ear, from the depths of hell. He got to work. Minutes later, a clean, disembodied 10-second clip, pure incriminating venom. Next, choosing the battlefield. Not a public square, but a private club. Where the right ears listened. Built on quiet credibility and inside knowledge. The Sentinel's Perch, I said. Eli nodded. The Sentinel's Perch is a private, invitation-only online forum for active and retired military officers, intelligence analysts, defense contractors. A digital VFW hall. Secrets are currency. Reputations made or broken overnight. A whisper there becomes a roar in the Pentagon by morning. Perfect place to plant doubt. Using an anonymous, heavily encrypted account, Eli uploaded the clip. Gave it a simple, provocative title. Anyone recognize this voice? No comment. No explanation. Just a stone dropped into a pond. We waited for ripples. In the dim cabin light, monitors glowing on our faces, silence thick with anticipation. At first, nothing. Then a single comment. Sounds like Blackwood. Another. No way. Quality's too clean. Is this real source? Don't post without source. The cadence is right. Been in briefings with him for 20 years. That's him. Bet my pension. Within an hour, the thread exploded. Thousands of views. Hundreds of comments. Retired signals intelligence analysts ran the audio through spectrogram software, debating waveforms. Veterans argued inflections on committee. Journalists lurking sent private messages to the anonymous poster, desperate for the source. The pond became a churning sea of suspicion. Cold, sharp satisfaction settled in my gut. I threw the first stone. Hit my target. The real victory came next day. The ripple reached shore and became a tidal wave. Blackwood panicked. Under pressure, the Pentagon's press office released a statement. I read aloud from a news site on Eli's monitor, steady voice. We are aware of a maliciously fabricated audio clip created using advanced deepfake technology being circulated online, intended to defame General Alistair Blackwood's distinguished record of service. I looked at Eli, brow furrowed. Standard denial. But Eli laughed, loud, genuine, echoing. The fools, he crowed, triumphant. The arrogant fools. They walked right into the kill box. What mistake? I leaned closer. They're so focused on denying the how, they forgot the what. They denied it's real, but never denied it's him. They confirmed the voice by calling it a deep fake. They admitted to the world the voice belongs to Blackwood. He leaned back, pure joy on his face. Battle just began, General. And we won round one without firing a shot. Our small victory was a flicker swallowed instantly by looming darkness. The beast had been poked. Now it hunted. I met Colonel Sinclair for coffee in Georgetown, a cafe with worn floors and rich coffee scent. Low tones. He offered what support he could inside the system. Warned Blackwood was moving. Calling in favors. Influence like toxic tendrils spreading through Pentagon shadows. I left the cafe with familiar tactical dread knotting my stomach. At the parking garage, I saw it immediately. All 4 tires flat, slashed with brutal precision. A professional message of intimidation. But worse. Tucked under the windshield wiper, a black and white photo printed on slick glossy paper. My heart hammered. It was a picture of me and Eli in his cabin, bathed in the eerie green glow of monitors. The photo had been taken from outside, through the cabin window at night, a voyeuristic, chilling image that screamed one terrifying message: we know where you are. We see everything. A cold dread crept over me, a sensation all too familiar from hostile territories. The war had left the digital realm. It was here, now. I was being hunted. The next morning, the system struck back with crushing bureaucratic force. An official summons arrived via a stone-faced courier, ordering me to report to the Pentagon immediately. But I wasn't led to an office. Instead, I found myself in a small, windowless conference room in the earring, a sterile box designed to make you feel insignificant. Across the polished table sat 2 colonels from the Inspector General's office, their faces passive masks. They were the system's inquisitors. They didn't ask about Blackwood, Chimera, or my father. Their questions were a trap, legal landmines disguised as inquiries. They accused me of violating national security protocols, disseminating classified information, conduct unbecoming an officer, and undermining the good order and discipline of the United States Army. Major General James, the senior colonel, said flatly, "You are hereby suspended from all duties indefinitely, pending the outcome of this investigation." At that moment, the door opened, and a young military police officer stepped in, his face tight with discomfort. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Ma'am, I need your common access card." My CAC, the simple plastic card that was my key to the world I'd built, my access to bases, systems, emails, my entire professional life. It was my identity as a soldier. I slid it from my wallet and placed it on the table. The plastic clicked loudly in the silent room. It felt like they were peeling off my skin. Without it, I was no longer a general. I was Dakota James, civilian. Officially excommunicated by the institution I'd sworn to defend with my life. That evening, in a cheap motel room smelling of stale smoke and disinfectant, a news alert popped up on my phone. Preston, my stepbrother, was guest on a popular right-wing podcast, spinning a masterful web of lies. His voice was dripping with fake sympathy as he painted me, his sister, as a mentally unstable, jealous woman who couldn't measure up to his success. "My sister is a tragic figure," Preston said. "She can't accept that our father chose me to carry on his legacy. She's lashing out. These accusations are the product of a troubled, hateful mind." The narrative spread like wildfire, comments filled with vitriol, branding me crazy, ungrateful, unstable. The walls weren't just closing in. They had collapsed. Alone in that buzzing motel room, the glow of my phone illuminating my face, I had to ask myself, have you ever had your truth twisted into a weapon against you, especially by your own family? Told you're unstable, crazy, just for speaking what they don't want to hear? It's a specific kind of violence. They isolate you. Discredit you. Turn the world against you until you doubt your own sanity. That insidious whisper took root in my mind. Maybe they're right. The buzzing silence of that cheap motel room was a tomb. I was buried alive beneath my family's lies and the Pentagon's betrayal. Then my burner phone vibrated on the bedspread, a restricted number. I almost ignored it, but some flicker of hope made me answer. "Major General James, I can't talk long. My name isn't important, but my cousin was Lyra Sodto." Lyra Sodto, the bright young captain who had worked in my father's office, recently killed in a tragic car accident. "No accidents in this war," I whispered. The voice trembled. "Before she died, she gave me something. Said, if anything happens to me, find Dakota James. Only she will know what to do." Hope pierced the fog of despair. "What did she give you?" "I can't say." "We need to meet. Union Station, by the main clock. 1 hour. Be alone." The line went dead. Union Station was chaos, tourists, commuters, a river of anonymous faces. Perfect for ghosts to meet ghosts. By the main clock, a young man in a hoodie brushed past me without eye contact, slipping something cold and metallic into my hand, a small red USB drive. Then he melted back into the crowd. Back in Cal's cabin, my sanctuary, I held the USB. A military-grade encrypted device designed to self-destruct after too many failed attempts. I slid it into Cal's laptop. "Password?" he asked. I tried everything, Lyra's birthday, my father's, military IDs. Nothing. Access denied. "Stop thinking like a computer," Cal said. "Think like a soldier. Lyra trusted you. She'd use something only you would know, the foundation, the creed." I closed my eyes, picturing West Point, my father's face on graduation day, the crisp autumn air, and I heard the words. I typed one unbroken phrase, duty honor country. Access granted. A single video file appeared. Captain Lyra Sadto's face filled the screen, fear trembling beneath her steady voice. General James, if you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. They got to me. Blackwood is cleaning house. I copied everything, the entire Chimera server. All the evidence is on this drive. Please make my sacrifice mean something. The video ended. My hands shook. Cal's steady hand on my shoulder grounded me as I explored the files. A labyrinth of deceit, financial records, illegal arms transfers, coded orders moving high-tech weaponry to hostile powers. Then a folder labeled Testament. Inside were audio recordings from my father. Calm, measured, reading his own last will. He exposed Blackwood's conspiracy, how he'd used Project Chimera as a slush fund to sell America's secrets to the highest bidder. He betrayed his oath. My father's voice trembled with righteous anger, breaking his composure. He betrayed this country. I confronted him. He gave me a choice, silence or death. A long pause. I chose both, my father said, voice heavy with love. A death that would give my daughter the truth she needed to speak for me. I broke, a raw sob ripping from my throat. The tears I'd held back came hot and bitter. He hadn't just been assassinated. He had engineered his own martyrdom. His death was the final piece of evidence. A burning torch passed from his hand to mine. I cried for my father, the hero they killed, and for the brave young woman who died for this truth. Then I wiped my tears. Grief forged into cold, hard steel. I had the weapon. I had the truth. Now, I had a war to win. The annual Army Birthday Ball was held in the cavernous ballroom of the Walter E. Washington Convention Center, the glittering heart of the military-industrial complex. Generals, politicians, lobbyists, defense contractors, all gathered in a sea of dress uniforms and evening gowns. This was my enemy's home turf. Tonight, I would burn it down. Trading my motel anonymity for the crisp blue of my army service uniform, polished brass, rows of medals, my armor, my authority reclaimed. When I entered, whispers rippled through the room. There stood Eleanor and Preston, flanking a confident, smiling General Blackwood. Their faces froze. Eleanor's painted smile tightened. Preston looked like he'd seen a ghost. They saw me not as a guest, but as a problem who refused to stay buried. Eleanor whispered urgently to Blackwood, who glanced at me with annoyance, then shrugged dismissively. His arrogance was his fatal flaw. He thought me powerless, a fly to swat away. He had no idea I was here for the hunt. Forced pleasantries and hollow speeches dragged on until the moment arrived. The MC began a tribute to my father, polished platitudes praising a legend, ignoring the man. When he finished, I moved onto the stage, calm and deliberate. The room fell silent. I took the microphone. "Forgive the interruption," I said, voice steady and clear. "But there's a critical detail missing from that tribute." I let the silence hang, then fixed my gaze on Blackwood's table. My father, General Jonathan James, did not die of natural causes. He died because he carried a truth some powerful people in this room wanted buried. Blackwood's smile faltered. Eleanor went pale. He was murdered. A gasp swept the audience. The silence was a heavy vacuum. I pressed a button on my remote. The screens behind me flickered to life, and Blackwood's cold, precise voice filled the ballroom. "He's a problem. Make sure he never gets the chance to testify before the committee." The order for my father's execution echoed beneath the chandeliers. The ballroom froze. Eleanor's champagne flute slipped, shattering like a gunshot. Preston staggered back as if to flee. My voice cut through the shock, steel sharp. The complete unredacted evidence of Project Chimera, including files detailing treason and conspiracy, was delivered to the Department of Defense Inspector General and every major news outlet 5 minutes ago. At that moment, the ballroom doors swung open. 4 uniformed MPs marched in, grim and professional. They walked straight to Blackwood's table. No words. No resistance. The arrogance drained from Blackwood's face, leaving only a hollow shell of a man. He rose slowly as one MP secured handcuffs on his wrists. The click echoed through the room. They led him away, a fallen king marched from his castle. The crowd parted silently. My war was over. Weeks later, the empire of corruption crumbled. Blackwood was convicted of treason and murder in a closed military tribunal and sentenced to life without parole at Fort Leavenworth. The James Family Foundation was frozen, assets seized, revealing shell companies and offshore accounts. Preston faced federal fraud charges. His Maserati and suits traded for an orange jumpsuit. Eleanor vanished, Washington's social queen abdicated her throne in shame. Investigators revealed my father's final secret: the Chimera backup server required 2-factor authentication, his physical CAC card and a complex password only I could know. He hadn't just trusted me, he had made me the key. I was the fail-safe, the sole guardian of his truth and honor. My suspension lifted. My record cleared. The Secretary of the Army himself issued a formal apology. But I felt no triumph. Only quiet. The fire of rage burned out, leaving fertile ground for peace. Months later, an invitation arrived, to be the keynote speaker for West Point's graduating class. Back at Eisenhower Hall, looking out at thousands of eager gray-clad cadets, I felt my journey close full circle. I set aside my notes. They will teach you strategy, logistics, leadership, and following orders, I began. But I'm here to talk about the one thing they cannot teach you, the one thing you must find inside yourselves: conscience. The hardest part of being a soldier is not following orders, but knowing when not to. Recognizing when an order, no matter how official, violates your oath, your honor, the very soul of this nation. Your duty is not just to the chain of command. Your ultimate duty is to the truth. The hall erupted into a standing ovation, a thunderous roar of respect washing over me, healing wounds I didn't know I still had. As applause continued, Colonel Carrick, now retired, walked on stage. Without a word, he held out a perfectly folded American flag, the flag that draped my father's casket. The Army was returning it to me, not as a grieving daughter, but as recognized heir. An apology. An act of restoration. Peace. I accepted it, the tightly folded triangle heavy and sacred in my hands. As I left, a young female cadet approached, eyes fierce and nervous, clutching a program. "Ma'am, General James, could you sign this for my little sister? I want to show her women can be lions, too." I saw my legacy reflected in her. Not wealth or power. Courage. I smiled, genuine and unburdened for the first time in years. "It would be my honor," I said. I hadn't just reclaimed my father's legacy. I had forged my own. And lit a path for a new generation of lions to follow. This story was taken from the internet. If you want to submit your stories on this channel, check out the link provided in description. Like, comment, share and subscribe.